Hi everybody, and welcome to Theoral's complete guide to Marvel Champions, Heroes A to Z. I'm Theoral, and I'll be your host as we go through this series of videos talking about the heroes of Marvel Champions. We'll look at their rich lore, their strategic gameplay, and their various deck building options. Hopefully by the end, you will have been sufficiently entertained and have a better understanding of who each of these characters is, what you can do with them, and be able to have a more enjoyable time with your Marvel Champions experience. Today we're going to start with Adam Warlock, the first hero in alphabetical order. He's a cosmic hero in the Marvel Universe. He's been a Guardian of the Galaxy. He's fought Thanos. He's died a lot of times, and keeps coming back to life because that's like his thing. So, who is this character though? Where does he come from? What's he do? He's been in cartoons. He's been in video games. He's even been in a movie. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and dig in. We'll look at the history of this character, where he comes from, and then we'll move from the lore side of things back into the Marvel Champion side of things. So hopefully you'll all enjoy. So Adam Warlock began his life as him. He was created by the Enclave, a group of human scientists in the 60s. I guess his first issue was in 1967, Fantastic Four number 66, and from there, within that he was being created by these genetic engineers who had plans to use him to like make a bunch of money. And Adam Warlock, when he was in his cocoon, overheard what they were talking about doing, and he wasn't going to have any of that. So when he broke out of his cocoon, he beat him up and flew off. And after flying off, he found a woman, Lady Sif, and he thought, that's the woman for me. And so he abducted her, as these characters do. And Thor, well, he was having none of that, so he beat up Adam Warlock until Adam Warlock, having been defeated, retreated into his cocoon. And thus, him, that's sort of the story of him. And then from that point, he emerged from his cocoon and met up with the High Evolutionary, whose card does not appear here because there's no High Evolutionary in Marvel Champions at this point. But having met up with the High Evolutionary, he got a new name. The High Evolutionary dubbed him Warlock and sent him off to Counter-Earth to be a hero there and defeat the evil Man-Beast who had brought evil to the High Evolutionary's perfect world that looked an awful lot like Earth, except for, slightly different. And while he was there, he made some friends with some teens because it was the 1970s and he was a superhero. And one of those teens said, Warlock, that's not a name, you should be called Adam. So thus he became Adam Warlock, being named by a teen and the High Evolutionary. Anyways, he fought the Man-Beast there for a while. One of his teen friends got killed, but that doesn't matter. He teamed up with the Doctor Doom of Counter-Earth, who's a good guy, because Reed fixed his face instead of being a jerk. I don't know. Anyways, teamed up with Doctor Doom. Eventually teamed up with even the Hulk from the real world, and they managed to defeat the Man-Beast and all evil on Counter-Earth. And having saved all of Counter-Earth, Adam Warlock said, it's time for me to go to space. So Adam Warlock flew off into space, and while in space, he ran up against the evil Magus, and somehow he had to fight against this force that was more powerful, or as powerful as himself, and who was leading the Universal Church of Truth. So he got together some friends. He got together Pip the Troll and Gamora and Thanos, his friends, and they fought Magus, and they defeated him by destroying the timeline that gave birth to him, because he's actually Adam Warlock from the future, and so they stopped that timeline from happening, and then the Magus was defeated. And then Thanos sent Adam Warlock into the future, and he met his future self, who didn't become Magus, and he was sad and gonna die, and so he put him in the Soul Stone, because I did not mention, but the High Evolutionary gave Adam Warlock the Soul Stone. Just, handed it to him. So After doing that, Adam Warlock had some stuff to say to the Soul Stone. He had some disagreements with it, I guess you could say. But eventually, he managed to master the Soul Stone and take control of it, become its master. I think is how they say it. And then he flew around the galaxy, flew to Earth, became a giant. I don't know, shrank back down to normal size, did some more space stuff. Eventually, he found out that Earth was under threat from Thanos. Thanos was attacking the Earth. And so Adam Warlock came and he helped to defend the Earth from Thanos with the help of, Marvel, like original Captain Marvel, pre-Carol, and Captain America, Avengers, superheroes. So they fought against Thanos, and at some point, Adam Warlock was severely wounded and ended up retreating into Soul World. And they kept fighting Thanos until eventually the Soul Gem fell onto the floor or something. He popped out of it, turned Thanos into stone, and then went back into the Soul World. And he hung out in the Soul World for a few years and had peace. And everything was happy for our Adam Warlock until something terrible happened. And it turned out that Thanos, again, having come back from being stone, was collecting all of the Infinity Gems, and I think he found it out from the Soul Stone or something like that. But anyways, however it worked out, Adam Warlock had to come and fight with Thanos because he had all the Soul Stone, all the Infinity Gems, and he snapped his fingers and killed half the population of everything. And so Adam Warlock and the remaining heroes fought with Thanos until eventually the Infinity Gauntlet ended up somehow falling into the hands of Nebula, who was a space pirate villain at the time. And she had the Infinity Gauntlet, so she undid what Thanos had done, brought everybody back to life, and then took over the galaxy because she was a villain at the time. But they managed to stop Nebula and take the Infinity Gauntlet away from her, and now Adam Warlock had the Infinity Gauntlet, and being a hero, he only did things like try and separate his evil and good self and create two horrible villains, the Magus and Goddess, until eventually he ended up interacting with the In-Betweener and the Living Tribunal, and they were like, yo, dude, this is you don't need this. You're not worthy of wielding all of the Infinity Gems. And so he created the Infinity Watch. Realizing that he could not keep the Infinity Gems to himself, he shared them with all of his friends, like Gamora and Pip the Troll and Drax, who he'd had previous encounters with in Moondragon. And he gave them each their own Infinity Gem, but that's not enough people. So he also gave one to Thanos, because, why not? It's Thanos. They were friends before. Anyways, he did that in secret, of course, because he couldn't have anybody know that Thanos had the Realities Gem. Anyways, they hung out for a while and fought a bunch of bad guys and did stuff, and this is kind of Golden Age Adam Warlock comics. Where they did just a bunch of stuff, and the roster of the Infinity Watch changed a bit over time, and they brought in some other people, and one of them was a person who was eventually going to kill Adam Warlock, and Gamora didn't like that because they were kind of a thing, and insults flew, and they broke up. They stopped being the Infinity Watch. But that was okay, because Adam Warlock could then go off into the Ultraverse and hang out with the Silver Surfer and try and find the Infinity Gems that had been lost as part of the Infinity Watch breaking up stuff. Anyways, he eventually found the Soul Gem again and brought it back. But meanwhile, he just kind of hung around space and hung out with his friends and fought bad guys, and Drax was a suspected murderer, and it's okay, he wasn't really a murderer, and they fought Blastar and Annihilus, and hung out with Quasar, not Wendell Vaughn, I can't remember his name, whoever he is, but the original Quasar, Marvel's son, who is Phyla-Vel's father. So they all hung out and did stuff until eventually, having they had done enough stuff, and Adam Warlock kind of wanted to go and hang out by himself, so he retreated back just to go find some solitude. And that's when Annihilus showed up and destroyed everything in the comic series Annihilation. As part of that, he killed 1 billion people, and those billion people, souls, came to Adam Warlock. and that was too much for him to handle, so he had to go back into his cocoon to recover. So at the start of or very early in Annihilation, we find Adam Warlock in his cocoon. And Moondragon and Phyla-Vell, granddaughter of Mar-Vell, find this cocoon and decide that they need to get Adam Warlock out of it to help them with all of the bad things that are going on. So they do that against the High Evolutionary's desire, because as he put it, Adam Warlock wasn't ready yet. But that's okay. Get him out of that cocoon. So Adam Warlock out of the cocoon. They fight bad guys for a bit. Eventually, they run across Star-Lord and Nova and Warlock, the Phalanx Warlock guy, because there's a Phalanx-infested Ultron, or merged Phalanx and Ultron villain that's floating around and doing bad stuff in space. So they all get together to fight him, and meanwhile, Adam Warlock's kind of struggling with the fact that he wasn't quite ready to emerge, but it's okay. He uses his quantum magic, and he recovers and is able to defeat the Phalanx Ultron with their help. And thus, he is fully himself again, with access to all of his powers and the Avatar of Life, because he's got these billion souls all in him and all that stuff. And so they form the Guardians of the Galaxy in order to stop these things from happening ever again. This would be, of course, the second iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy. The first one was 3,000 years in the future. Because comics and time is not the way that you would normally think of time passing. But anyways, so there's time shenanigans here. Starhawk comes back from the future and they interact with him. They've got their core lineup of Guardians, and then Moondragon and Nova's hanging around, and Marvel Boy comes for a bit. They fight various space villains, including the Universal Church of Truth, except for there's no Magus. Foreshadowing. But, all in all, things are going good. They're bouncing around in time a bit. Adam Warlock's using his cosmic awareness to find things before they happen. They deal with some Skrull invasion, except for it's not really a Skrull invasion because they're in space and the Skrulls are just normally there. Whatever. Anyways, eventually, some really bad stuff happens, and Adam Warlock has to save the universe, which he does by transforming the timeline and doing time magic, and he decides that a timeline where everybody survives is the timeline where he becomes the Magus. And so he merges these two timelines, even though he had defeated this timeline way back when. He decides that that's the only timeline that we can have. And so he attempts to fight off the Magus, but is unable to. Magus takes over. And now Adam Warlock is the Magus, just like he was destined to be always. And he kills a whole lot of people, and it's really bad. And since this is comics, and Star-Lord wants to stop him from having killed all the people, he meets up with Kang. He gets a cosmic cube. He goes back in time, and he's like, yo, we're not going to let you take over everything, Magus, and kill everybody. I'm going to stop you. Except for still, he lets a bunch of his friends die while he's trying to subdue the Magus without having to kill Adam Warlock. But Adam Warlock's like, no, look, I got this. I've got him under control right now. Just shoot me. So he shoots him, and he dies. Dies. There we go. And so Adam Warlock is dead. Except for, oh no, he's not. Actually, the Magus is still fine. Those guys, he fakes his death because he recognized he wasn't at full power. Also, he faked the death of some of those Guardians that he killed. Instead, he has them captured, and he's gonna do stuff with them, and all these things happen. And then the Cancerverse comes, and they're like, yeah, we called you the Avatar of Life because we're life incarnate or whatever like that. And they say, we kill you. So they killed the Magus, and in a completely non-fanfare, just to show how powerful they were, so that they could be the big villain. And so Adam Warlock, as the Magus, is dead. Except he's really not. See, he's in the Soul Stone, and that's where he went even when he became the Magus, maybe part of the time, whatever it was. Anyways, he's in the Soul Stone, or in Death's Court or something. I don't know. Anyways, Thanos finds him, and they hang out, and they have some good old-fashioned buddy cop adventures with Thanos and Adam Warlock. until eventually they find the cosmic entities, and Adam Warlock is turned into the Living Tribunal, because he also is gold. Anyways, so he is the Living Tribunal, and Thanos is like, hey, I want Warlock back. So the Living Tribunal, which is Adam Warlock, creates Adam Warlock, and so he's back. And if that sentence seems very strange, that's because comics. Anyways, so they're hanging out for a bit until eventually it comes to Adam Warlock's attention that someone is trying to gather all of the Infinity Stones, because Kang tells him, I guess. Anyways, Kang's like, hey, Adam Warlock, I need your help. I'm going to send you back in time. You're going to help me in the past to get the Time Stone, so that the person that's trying to collect all the stones doesn't get all of them. So that's what happens. Adam Warlock goes back to the past. He hooks up with Ramatut, and they try and get the Time Stone. And then he takes the slow way back to the future by living in a tomb for like 1,000 years or whatever, 2,000 years, until eventually he gets back to the future, and they've secured the Time Stone, except for, well, that didn't really work out because Gamora, she has all the stones now, and she's the one that was gathering them all, and it's a big reveal. Sorry, spoilers, but it's been a few years. Anyways, Gamora takes all the stones, and she snaps her fingers and destroys half the universe, except for not really. Kind of what she does is she puts it into the Soul Stone and folds it in half, and then half of everybody isn't dead. They're just merged together, and we get such exciting groups as such exciting characters, not groups, as the Soldier Supreme, or the Iron Hammer, Arachnite, and Hex 23. But Loki, who was all doing kind of crazy stuff throughout this, is not merged with anybody. He works with the White Queen, who at the time is merged with Wolverine. They get a stone to unmerge her from Wolverine, because who wants that? They find Adam Warlock, who also isn't merged with anybody, and he's wants to do stuff. He wants to defeat the bad person, the Verona, who's in the Soul Stone. They find Loki's friends that he implanted the thoughts for in Gamora to make them merge together, being Miss Marvel and Kang and Hulk and Ant-Man, and they split them up so that they can be their own heroes. And this ragtag group of heroes goes and stops Gamora and gets the Soul Stone, or gets the stones back and puts everything back together, and everything's happy. And then Adam Warlock takes all those Infinity Stones, and he says, you know what, you need to stop being subject to other people. You need your own souls. So he uses his quantum magic and gives sentience or souls to all of the Infinity Stones. They're not gems anymore. That's not the Secret Wars. Anyways, he gives them all their own sentience, and they all fly off into space. And he has a meaningful heart-to-heart with the Soul Stone, who he's loved since the beginning of when the High Evolutionary gave it to him, at the very beginning of this whole story. But it doesn't feel the same way, and so it takes off and abandons him. Poor Adam Warlock. Since then, he's not really done much. This was several years ago, this comic story. But he did have a recent story that was set back in the Infinity Watch days. So there's that. But otherwise, he's just been kind of a background character for a little while. He may eventually get picked up by somebody. He's a character with plenty of history. There's plenty of ways to pull at him and do interesting things. He's around. He's not dead at the moment, which is maybe why he's not around. I don't know. Anyways, that brings us to Adam Warlock. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed that little exploration of Adam Warlock's history. Now let's talk about what can Adam Warlock do. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, he was genetically engineered to be the perfect being, which means he can fly, he has super strength, he has super durability, and he can shoot energy out of his hands, which makes him like 3 for 4 for being Superman. It's just out of his hands instead of his eyes, But really, also he has gold skin, because I guess that makes him more perfect. Um, he also does magic, but it's quantum magic. Which, as we all know, if you take a technobabble word like quantum and put it in front of magic, then it becomes spacey and cool instead of humdrum and dull. I don't know. Anyways, whatever it is, it's quantum magic he does. And it's just magic in space because he's a space wizard. And he also can just shoot energy out of his hands, and he like lives on just background radiation. He doesn't need to eat, he doesn't need to drink, and he's tough and strong. He's also a genius, because obviously he was genetically engineered to be perfect, so he's a genius. That's Adam Warlock. In a nutshell, that's his powers. That's like what he's capable of. So, the question then becomes, in terms of moving on from our exploration of the character's lore into Marvel Champions, how well does Adam Warlock in Marvel Champions represent that character that we've just painted? Where does he match up? How does this all match? So, firstly, we've got his alter ego. He is a mystic, and he is the avatar of life, which means during deck building, your deck must include an equal number of cards from all four aspects. So he's got this multi-aspect thing going on, which I think is fitting for Avatar of Life, because that's kind of what he got from this billion souls that he's got access to. Like he can access them for information and stuff like that. So there's some sense to this of well, now he has the skills and abilities of this billion people, and that represents itself by having access to all of the aspects all the time. Fitting. He cannot include more than one copy of any non-Adam Warlock card. Again, they're just kind of the leftovers of their souls, so there's some sense to that in terms of him being that avatar of life. He has this action that lets him discard a status card, which fits with his kind of his toughness, his resilience. He has 1/1/2 stats, which is crazy. He's like super strong and a super genius. Why is 1/1/2? That's weird. He's also super tough. 2/2/3, 3/3/3 maybe. Those would be fitting stats for Adam Warlock in terms of his power. He's a battle mage, which is fine, I guess. Space magic. He can discard a card from his hand and do some random stuff with that. It's kind of a flexible power. It does a lot of different things. Shows his flexibility. It works. He can do, he can kind of do 3 damage or 3 threat or any mix of that, which is fine, and I think a reasonable representation of what he can achieve. Just low stats. He also is a guardian and a mystic, and he is not aerial, but that's okay. They don't ever put more than 2 traits on a hero. Surely he's going to have aerial somewhere in his kit, since he flies. Even his ally has aerial, right? Yeah, well, no, he doesn't. There's nothing here that gives him aerial. The place I would expect him to get it from is his cape, because capes always give aerial, and they always ready you. That's what capes do in Marvel Champions. It's just a thing. But this doesn't give him aerial, so he doesn't have it. He can't fly, which is crazy. I mean, he's floating in this picture right here on his alter ego card. He's flying in this picture, I think. Looks like he's flying, but he can't fly. It's weird. He can fly in space. Like, if anybody should be able to fly. Anyways, he can't fly. So that's one thematic miss there. Or second one, I guess. His base stats being the other one. He comes with Pip the Troll. Pip the Troll, as we mentioned, was his friend in a lot of these different scenarios. He was part of the Infinity Watch, part of his group that hung out together even before Thanos. So that's fitting. He's a mystic, I guess, because he's a troll. It's not like a wizard or anything, I don't think. He does have this ability, which lets him just like pop into play, which fits with his teleportation when he was part of that Infinity Watch. If we go back there, see he has the Space Stone, and so he's connected with the Space Stone, and he has this ability to teleport, kind of in the same way that Adam Warlock had that attachment to the Soul Stone, which gave him all of these soul powers, even whether he has it or not. They kind of leave their mark, so that's the mark that it left on Pip the Troll, is the ability to teleport. He's got toughness, because it would really be silly if he could teleport into play and not be tough. He's super strong, but I don't know why he would be super tough. Anyways, he has it because mechanically he needs it. I think the teleportation bit makes sense though. is good for him, and he's otherwise just he's a very sensible ally for Adam Warlock to have. Sensible ally, teleportation. The rest of it's just kind of whatever. There's Soul World. Soul World is very appropriate for Adam Warlock. He does often go into Soul World, and that's where one of the places that he goes when he dies or nearly dies in order to recover. And that's what this does. It just recovers him all the way to full health. So that's a fitting thing for Soul World to do. I don't know that Soul World is the most fitting. I would kind of expected his Cocoon. He has spent, I think, more time in his Cocoon than Soul World, or at least recovered more often in his Cocoon than Soul World. But Soul World is still fitting for that. It's just this kind of funny thing about Adam Warlock that he has like multiple places that he's come back to life from. He can go to his Cocoon, he can go to Soul World, he can just go to Death's Court and be brought back from there. You know, he can become the Living Tribunal and come back from there. Whatever. He just doesn't really stay dead. So he definitely needed a card that represented that. Soul World seems like a good option. He has a Karmic Staff, which is a thing that he has. It's like an extrusion of himself. I don't know. It's weird. Whatever comics, but yes, it's a staff, and this is kind of a weird picture because it's just like I don't really know if it's on the table. Anyways, his staff lets him focus his magic. This staff generates a wild resource. I wish it had an interaction with more spell stuff, but it doesn't have really, except for that wild resource could be used to pay for spells. Other than that, though, it's just kind of I think they could have done something with this. In particular, I think they could have done something with like the discarding effects that he does. Give you more control, which is kind of what it's supposed to do. Then it would probably not need to cost 2. But whatever. Resources are good, so I guess that's what he gets. This cape, we already talked about. It lets him ready because that's what capes do. And readying's kind of an abstract concept, and capes are kind of a weird thing, so whatever. Cosmic Ward. So Cosmic Ward is one of his spells. Lets him do magic, cancel effects. That seems like a fitting magical thing to do. Great. He has Quantum Magic, which lets him grab a card from his discard pile, which is a fitting thing for magic because it's like whatever he needs at the time. He has Cosmic Awareness and Mystic Senses because that's like one of his things is that he just kind of knows what's going on and is able to go and respond to that. Cosmic Awareness is Thwart, which is totally fitting. Mystic Senses is card draw for some reason associated with his Battle Mage. I don't get that thematically at all. I mean, I guess it's a thing, but I would expect, especially given their clear alignment with the idea that he has some crazy senses and he knows what's going on, that he would have some kind of scrying effect. One of these could be scrying, and that would be fitting. Neither of them is. He doesn't have scrying. It's not like he needs it necessarily, but it's kind of surprising he doesn't have it. And then finally we have Karmic Blast, which is just his energy blast that he can shoot normally. It's called Karmic because it is. And yeah, it's just a damaging effect. I would expect him to be able to shoot energy. He's been able to do that from the time he was created. It's not related to his magic, which is one thing that they have done here. All of these are superpowers, not spells, which is fitting in terms of he just kind of has these things. He doesn't cast spells for them. He uses spells to like go faster than light and create magic shields, and just do whatever random plot thing that is necessary to be done because magic is just the answer to all the problems. So in that sense, it's fitting. In this sense, this is also fitting. It's nice that he has, at least for Karmic Blast and Cosmic Awareness, that these aren't spells. Mystic Senses could go either way. He does. I think having one of these be more associated with his magic side than his just super power ultimate being side would have been fitting, but whatever. That's where it is. So it's surprising that he doesn't have any scry. It's surprising that he doesn't have a more Mystic Senses isn't more clearly magically aligned and less superpowery. And his staff could do something better, and his base stats are crazy low for who he is. But other than that, that's kind of where I look at him in terms of his thematics. Okay, so let's talk about strategy. So Adam Warlock as a hero, it's kind of if you look at my tier list, you'll see I put him kind of in a mid tier, and there's a few things that go into that. So for one thing, in terms of strengths, he is a very flexible hero. He has this ability to include all aspects during deck building, which means he can take the best card from each aspect, which is nice. He's got some nice events in terms of decently efficient. 2 for 3 plus and 2 for 4 plus is good. They max out at 7 and 8, which is really high. But usually this is going to be about 2 for 5, 3 to 5, and this is going to be about 2 for 6 to 7, or 5 to 7, whatever. 7's high, 6, 5 to 6, 2 for 5 to 6, 2 for 4 to 5. But 4 to 5 is really good threat, and 5 to 6 solid damage for 2. So this is good. These cards are nice and efficient. His Karmic Staff is nice resource. Soul World is amazing. Being able to recover all of your hit points without having to exhaust is great, and it scales amazingly. If you increase his hit points, he still heals all of it. You could have a Symbiote Suit and Endurance, have 24 hit points, and heal 23 of it if he got down to 1. For 1 trip to Alter Ego, that's amazing. That's crazy good. Cosmic Ward is solid in terms of just having when revealed cancels. It's also great in that it triggers an Alter Ego, which means you can just go Alter Ego with him and not have to worry about advance if you have a Cosmic Ward out, which is cool. This is solid treachery cancel and solid survivability. And then Mystic Senses is just good card draw. You use Battle Mage practically every turn. It's just efficient. Once you get 1 Mystic Senses out, it's free. Once you get 2 of them, it's actually positive. You can just discard any random card to Battle Mage in order to get card draw off of Mystic Senses. And Battle Mage is good. It's heal 1 from an ally is strong. Deal 2 damage, remove 2 threat, also strong. Give a hero +1 stats is not amazing, but it can combo pretty well with other players in particular situations, like working with Quicksilver or something. Okay, so, and then Pip the Troll. Pip the Troll is a great ally. 2 cost, toughness is solid. So let's talk about the other part of his kit. So Warlock's Cape, not great. He has 1/1/2 stats. It's not really worth readying him. And Quantum Magic. Quantum Magic is good, but we need to talk a little bit about the other half of Avatar of Life. So having all 4 aspects is cool. You can build crazy combos and just take really good cards. But the trick is you can't get good consistency. Only having 1 copy of each card really kills your ability to focus. If you're going to focus at something, you have to be able to do it in multiple aspects at once or with multiple different card names, cards by title. And so that can be a challenge. It can be a challenge to find enough different cards that have the same effect that you can really just focus in on what you want to do. So it makes his deck building a challenge, firstly, to be able to find a focus. And so you end up being flexible, but at the same time, not necessarily flexible turn by turn, because that lack of consistency yields a good amount of randomness. Battle Mage is pretty good, but it requires you to have that aspect card in your hand, and there's only like 4 or 5 of any given aspect card in your deck, usually. So if you put more cards in your deck, that's not going to help you be more consistent, really. You're just going to have more cards. The thing is, when you increase the cards, it increases the streakiness of what you get. At least, even though you only have 4 or 5 aggression cards in your deck, at least you only have 35 or 36 non-aggression cards in your deck. If you go up to like 8 aggression cards, I guess you can't do that, 6, 7 aggression cards, then you have more cards in your deck, and you have more non-aggression cards in your deck, which means you have more hand possibilities that don't include the aspect that you're looking for. So you can try and maximize aspect cards just to get more aspect cards and fewer of his cards, but his cards are good. Like I said, they're efficient. You don't really want to trade them for aspect cards necessarily. So that's a struggle. Just to have what you need. Additionally, like when you need to thwart, Adam Warlock like it's the same kind of thing. He struggles with focus here. He also struggles with focus here. Like you want to thwart. Well, you have a justice card. That's great. That means you got your best thwarting card, and now you can discard it for 2 threat instead of playing it. So that's an option. But then you don't have justice card anymore, and now you can't thwart. So it's just kind of, he has a difficult time focusing. He has a difficult time doing a thing from turn to turn. He has a difficult time doing a thing on a given turn. And his, more or less, the solution for that is Quantum Magic. Because Quantum Magic lets you use your discard pile as your hand. And once you can do that, then suddenly, okay, I need a justice card, I can grab one. I need thwarting, I can grab it. You can just go through your discard pile for what you need. The trick is it costs 1. And the difference between an efficient damage card and an inefficient damage card, 1 resource can totally be that difference. If you pay 1 resource for 3 damage, right? Or if you pay 2 resources for 5 damage, say, that's a pretty efficient attack card. If you pay 3 resources for 5 damage, it's inefficient. And that's what Quantum Magic is. It increases the cost of whatever that card is by 1. So yes, it will let you pivot your hand, but it's a very inefficient pivot unless you have a way to mitigate that cost of Quantum Magic. So that's kind of Adam Warlock's strengths and weaknesses. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some decks. So this is our first Adam Warlock deck. So Adam Warlock, because he builds with 4 aspects, it means we are not going to have aspect-specific decks. For other heroes, as we go forward, I'm going to try and build 1 deck in each aspect, but Adam Warlock is first because this is in alphabetical order, and it just happens that he's not the best representative for this. So we've just got 4 decks here. They don't necessarily have an aspect alignment, but I tried to make them different, make them do different things. So let's talk about what each of these decks does and kind of give some ideas for how you can change it up with Adam Warlock. So this first deck is really based around Symbiote Suit. I'll say as its basic. So Symbiote Suit gives you plus 10 hit points, which is great for Adam Warlock. Soul World plus 10 hit points is amazing. That on its own is enough. But it also gives plus 1 to each of his basic powers. And having plus 1 to each of your basic powers means that ready from Cape can be pretty good. Now you're at 2/2/3, and you have a free ready every turn, which is cool. So the idea here then is to let's lean into that. Let's get his basic powers up. So we can play Combat Training and Heroic Intuition. That makes him a 3/3/3. And then we can play cards like Blaze of Glory. That makes him a 5/5/3 for that turn. Or you can play Repurpose in order to discard an Energy Barrier. That also makes him a 5/5/5. Or a Sonic Rifle, make him a 6/6/6. If you can play both these cards, he can be an 8/8/6, which is crazy levels of stats there to be able to have. And you get to do a thing, you get to ready, you readied once with Repurpose, you can ready again with CITT, and then we just kind of ran a few ready cards. So we've got a ready in each aspect. We have Battle Fury, which is a ready, Justice Served, Major Victory, and What Doesn't Kill Me, all readies. So that gives us 4 different ways to ready, in addition to CITT, in addition to our base ready, and in addition to Repurpose, which means we can get a lot of mileage out of our stats, depending on how many of these things we can do in 1 turn. Now, what's especially cool about this is all of these cards go to the board. And so what that means is that when we're talking about, like, what can you do on a turn, right? In order to be able to do what I just described, have like 6/6/8 stats and ready 3 times in a turn, the only cards you need in hand are Blaze of Glory, What Doesn't Kill Me, Repurpose, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 resources. So that's 9 cards, which is a lot, but you have a 6-card hand. You can discard a card to draw 2. That's 7 cards. And so that was, 1, 2, 3, 9. 7 cards, so if 2 of those are double resources, that's 9. That's all you need. So yeah, that's, sure, that's a once in a lifetime thing to happen, to be able to do that many things in a given turn, but it's a thing that can be done. But really, I mean, that's the extreme side. Mostly what we're doing here, as I kind of described, we have this consistency issue because of having only one of each card. So most of what this does is it gives us a lot of redundancy. We have a good amount of redundancy in our ready effects. We have some redundancy in our stat boosting. And you can easily play an early game Blaze of Glory just to have 3/3 stats. It's 3/3 stats is great, especially if you've got his cape down and get a free ready. That's solid. When you go to 5/5 stats, that's a Quicksilver with a maximum velocity turn. So it's all very good there. Repurpose wants tech to discard, and we can't run 3 energy barriers to get a bunch of tech out. So instead, what I did was I just diversified. So we can have a hand cannon, an energy barrier, or a sonic rifle out. Additionally, if we have some of our Guardian allies out, we can give them comms implant or laser blaster. We can give anybody a reinforced suit. And our Guardian allies, at least in Bug and Starhawk, are pretty consistent to just stay on the board. Jack Flag is just, you can Voltron him up if you want to. He loves a comms implant or a reinforced suit. And then after you've used him up, you can just repurpose his tech and let him die. And now you get this, a ready and some stat boost, which is great when you're having a Blaze of Glory turn, for instance. It doesn't need to be, you don't have to repurpose a sonic rifle to have it be a good turn. Other than that, we've just got a few basic stat boosts with Skilled Strike and making an entrance. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Allies we can kind of depend on, readies, and stat boosts. So, next up, we have our aggression deck. Sure, why not? So this is leaning more into events and trying to take advantage of some of the new cards that we got from Next Evolution. Digging Deep and White Fox, of course, love to be discarded from our deck, so we're going to lean into that a bit with some of the discarding effects. So we've got all of our spells here, which are super great efficient events that we can use to discard this. We've got Gamora, who can discard these cards while she's searching for events. And then once we've gone that deep into basic cards, we have room for a few more, so we're going to running Spiritual Meditation, which can't play these cards, but still is just a good card. Endurance for the extra hit points without having to get the hazard icon from Symbiote Suit, and Sorcerer Supreme for the hand size. So, and that, yeah, we're just leaning into some of the events that we can find to basically have good board effect. So we've got some attacks with Relentless Assault, Toe-to-Toe, Hard Knocks, Momentum Shift. That's kind of our attack core. We've got Think Fast for the Confuse option, for Justice, so that we can do some thwarting with Zone of Silence, then to be able to turn the tide. Kalu helps us to search out our events. Thor's just a solid ally to do some damage. Starhawk's our good consistent ally that we can keep out every turn, and because we need 4 protection cards. And it doesn't maybe get the most use out of Summoning Spell without very expensive allies, but they're allies that we can play even if Summoning Spell doesn't hit them. And then, we can use things like Rapid Response to keep Gamora alive, make the call to pull her out of our discard pile, and that's kind of the idea. A lot of the protection cards don't really matter because we use them to heal Gamora, so that we can keep on cycling our deck and pulling out our hopefully better events. So that's the idea with this deck, primarily events and taking advantage of these discards. Next up, we've got what I have dubbed the leadership deck. So this is trying to lean into a little bit of the idea of that Adam Warlock can run all the 2-cost allies. So let's lean into that. Now, I did keep to my personal deck building rule of only running 6 allies, which means 5 because we already have Pip. He's 2-cost though. So we have all 2-cost allies here. And the idea was, if I'm going to run 2-cost allies, what can I do to help them be more effective? So I thought it would be cool to run team training, so that they're all +1 hit point, and boot camp, so they're all +1 attack. And this way we have a bunch of cheap allies, but they're as effective as expensive allies because we've invested in our kind of ally infrastructure. We throw in Triskelion because it's with allies this cheap, it's easy to get a lot of them out. I threw in build support so that we can actually get cards like boot camp out that are just so expensive to play otherwise. Nowhere, so that we can just keep recycling Starhawk forever. This deck does that better than any of the other decks that had Starhawk in them. I like Starhawk in terms of what he can bring in with consistency for Adam Warlock, who can struggle with consistency. Still kept in Shield Spell, Zone of Silence, just because we're kind of filling out aspects. Armored Vest, because kind of the idea with this deck then is that we're going to be doing a lot more defending to keep let the allies do their thing, I guess. Actually, I don't know why this is here, if I'm honest. Oh, we went crazy. I don't know. We have Pin Down because it's good, and multitasking one way or another because we can pull out schemes and we can thwart them, and then we can let allies finish thwarting them and deal damage to enemies, and we can let allies deal damage to enemies and remove threat from schemes. It's kind of the idea of just leaning into this whole ally element is over here. With MedLab to replay them, they're cheap, so it's easy. This gives us a little bit more swarming capability. And we can use Welcome Aboard. Welcome Aboard is cool in that it makes all these allies free, but also it can even make the ally from MedLab free because this is still played, not just put into play. It does not combo with Make the Call, but we've still got Make the Call because ultimately this is a swarming deck. It's just a swarm deck that only runs 6 allies. And you could easily replace several of these cards with allies if you don't feel compelled to keep yourself to that arbitrary restriction. But, yep, that's our ally-focused deck of Adam Warlock. And finally, we've got a deck that is my attempt at maybe modifying the Wild Tutors. So I mentioned when we were talking about Quantum Magic the idea that one of the issues with Quantum Magic, of course, is that it costs 1, and it makes everything 1 more expensive. What's interesting, and I think part of what Wild Tutor does that works, is that if you Quantum Magic for a card that you otherwise don't have in your hand, and you do have the double resource for it, such as Power of Protection or Power of Aggression, then Dropkick was free. The tutoring was free, rather. Quantum Magic was free. If you play if you have Power of Aggression and Quantum Magic in your hand, you play Quantum Magic, you pull Dropkick, that Quantum Magic was free because the Power of Aggression was only going to generate 1 resource, and now it generates 2. So you gained a resource by changing the cards in your hand. And that's kind of the idea, and I think that's the idea between the power of cards with Quantum Magic. Now, the problem is that some aspects don't run cards that are very expensive. So like a power of justice is only going to generate double resources if you happen to pull a sonic rifle back with it, or a concussive blow in the classic Wild Tutor. So that was kind of the idea here. Was I would drop a couple of them that didn't seem like they would work as often in order to include more various effects. So instead of having a power of leadership, we have Call for Backup, which lets us play some of our more expensive allies. I threw in Psylocke for aggression to give us more consistent confuse access with a sonic rifle, because part of what this deck does is a lot of statuses. We have Dropkick and Tackle for stuns, and then it has Psylocke and sonic rifle for confuses, which allows it to do a lot of work. Now, of course, this is a slight reduction in the event count, which does weaken our event grabbers a little bit, but I don't know, it was a sacrifice I was willing to make. I also put superpower training in here because it's nice to be able to get our identity specific upgrades out. Adam Warlock has some good ones. The Mystic Senses are solid, and even if you've managed to play all of them, it can still tutor out like a Cosmic Ward. Right. So whether you're getting one of these guys or one of these guys or just a Cosmic Ward out, it can still be worthwhile. So that's kind of the idea here. We use Gamora to get events. We use Nick Fury to draw cards. We use Kali to draw cards. We use Brother Voodoo to draw cards. And then we have some cards to try and pay off of that with the stuns and the confuses. And the player side schemes work well with Skilled Investigator to let us draw more cards. And other than that, Welcome Aboard is here again because it reduces the cost for allies, which means if we Quantum Magic an ally, again, it was free. Quantum Magic being able to grab literally any card is solid there. So especially, for example, if you have Power Regression and Welcome Aboard with Quantum Magic for Psylocke, it was like super free. It generated a resource instead of costing you a resource. So yeah, that's kind of the idea here. That's where I went with it. I've played all of these decks, and I would say that this one and the ally one were some of the weakest ones. This worked great. I was able to boost stats no problem. This one also worked very well. Just having White Fox and Digging Deep in the deck, honestly, it's amazing. This deck struggled a little bit, I think, primarily because I was fighting Arnim Zola, and Retaliate makes ally swarming not as good. And then finally this deck, which I'm not sure that this is actually an improvement over the just classic Wild Tutor. There's a lot of careful selection in Wild Tutor, I think, that that's present, and there's a lot of ways in which it just works. So I mean, things like Sonic Rifle was out when he chose to put Concussive Blow. Maybe it should be Concussive Blow. That would be another fist to help you play Dropkick easier. I don't know. There's things worth considering. That's all I'm saying. This was just an attempt to work with it to create a deck that's similar, and particularly I think that way of trying to use Power Ofs and Welcome Aboard and things to make Quantum Magic free. Also, some of the other things that I've talked about here, just having consistency by having different cards that have the same overall effect is relevant, and that's where we're at. So that's all of our decks. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Let me know if you want to see more of these videos. I gave away in the title that my intention is to go through every hero in alphabetical order, but if these videos only pick up like 5 views, I'm probably not going to do that, in all honesty. But hopefully this is enjoyable. You can share it, leave comments, let the algorithm know that this is the kind of content you want. Let me know this is the kind of content you want, and I can keep doing it. As I'm finishing up the next evolution playthrough with all of those heroes, I was thinking that an option to do moving forward as I make more of these videos is to play one of these decks. So if you would like to see me play one of these 4 decks, let me know that also in the comments, and you can just tell me that you want the Justice or Aggression or Leadership or Protection, or just tell me the color, whatever. If you want to see one of these decks get played, if you're curious how it would work in practice, if you have a particular villain you'd like to see it played against, also let me know. And otherwise, I'll just pick something, and we'll see how it goes from there. So, catch you next time.